Good day, listeners. This is CJ Miller, your host, and you are listening to the Spiritual Artist Podcast as we do our June Doodle Book Club. And I am asking the listeners to pull out their journals and doodle while they listen to me read a chapter from my book. Today's chapter was added in a kind of a revision about a year after I wrote the first book, because I suddenly realized that there were a couple aspects of the creative process that I totally ignored. So I'm excited to talk about this one today because I think it is very expansive and it continues to grow for me in how I teach art and how I understand who we are as spiritual artists. So let us begin. Quote, I sing the body electric. I celebrate the self yet to be unveiled. End quote. Walt Whitman. Chapter 15 is called A Body of Work. It takes courage to be truthful with yourself and others, especially when admitting to what you consider a weakness. But I'm going to walk through this fear and admit something that embarrasses me. It's a perceived physical limitation about myself. I have a non-essential tremor, and it causes my hands to shake when I tense my muscles slightly. For many years, I was ashamed of this condition and tried to hide it from others. While some artists can draw a straight, clean line with one hand, I cannot. But as I began watching my painting process, I realized I had developed techniques to work around this condition. I use what I call the drag method by holding a straight-edged brush and drawing outward to define sharp lines. Actually, this technique became the basis for my light series of work. By employing this process, I discovered a way to create edges in my work that catch the light. I had an aha moment when I realized that this limitation of my body impacted how I approached painting and the outpicturing of my creative DNA. Isn't that interesting? After recognizing that my body contributes to how I interpret the world and paint, I noticed many other artists who take their assumed limitations and use them as gifts. I found people with quadriplegia who learned to paint by holding a brush in their teeth, or amputees that would paint the most exquisite images with a brush between their toes. Our bodies are part of our expression. When I fully accepted who I was and how my body worked, I learned that my tremor was part of me and contributed to how I approached the artistic act. It provided a limitation that forced me to discover new aspects of unexplored creative expression. Our body is one of our most essential tools because we interpret and express ourselves through our physicality. An excellent example of how our bodies impact our art is visible in Jackson Pollock's work. Pollock was an American painter in the 40s and 50s known for his drip technique. He would place his canvas flat on the floor. Standing above, he would hold a can of house paint and make large splatters on the material with a sharp flick of his wrist. He would work his way around the surface with assorted colors and splatters, creating an image that was unique to him. Not only was his expression reflected through choice of color and pattern, but the length and strength of his arm made marks that were as individual to him as his own body. The emotional memory in his body would contribute to the recorded experience. Pollock's technique emphasizes that we bring our entire body and emotions to the creative experience. Every single physical aspect of an artist, arm strength, height, stature, eyesight, endurance, and more, interacts with the canvas. We bring our bodies into the studio, leaving a mark on our work. As spiritual artists, we bring our whole selves into the creative process, body, soul, and mind. Interesting. My body is making me strengthen my reading ability. Here you go. I recommend painter Riva Lair's memoir, Golem Girl, where she chronicles her lifelong journey as an artist born with spinal bifida. While I don't wish to diminish the pain inflicted through a lifetime of surgeries caused by spina bifida, her highly detailed portraits are stunning in their exactitude of expression. Riva has found her talent in sharing the personal story of each of her subjects, and her book details her physical and emotional challenges. Her story is shocking, moving, and impressive based on her physical life situation. Most importantly, her account shows how her disability became an opportunity for creativity. I realized from my own experience and her novel that disability creates ability. Your physical limitations are characteristics for opportunities for new spiritual expression. Quote, that is not true. The brush marks or pencil marks that make up a portrait describe the artist's body as well as the subject's. The way an artist paints or draws is a record of their height, eyesight, motor skills, cognition, endurance, wingspan, and muscular strength. A handmark artwork is the product of the body or bodies that made it happen. That makes a portrait a species of monster, a chimera built of illusions, that the subject is present and the artist is absent. In reality, the two bodies blur into one. Add the viewer and you get a three-headed hydra, end quote. Our bodies contribute to our process and they express the uniqueness of who we are. They not only reveal our physicality, they also hold our emotions. Make an honest self-examination. What physical characteristics have been considered a flaw that could be a gift in disguise? Instead of asking, why has this happened to me? Consider asking, why has this happened for me? I'm going to repeat that. Instead of asking, why has this happened to me? Consider asking, why has this happened for me? I ask you to consider what potential gift is revealed in your physicality. As part of your creative DNA, are you embracing all aspects of your whole self in your work? Better yet, have you avoided creativity due to a perceived lack in your body? How can you fully embrace yourself now? As a spiritual artist, you bring your entire physical self to the process. Upon self-reflection, I began to realize other aspects of my physical, quote, limitations, quote, that are reflected in my work. I got my first pair of eyeglasses in second grade. The thick framed spectacles embarrassed me and hindered me when wrestling with my brother. Despite an improvement in frames and the advent of contacts over the years, it wasn't a big surprise when I elected to pursue LASIK eye surgery in my 40s. The results were terrific. The doctor corrected my vision on the first attempt, and I remained prescription-free for a glorious 10 years. But the benefits began to fail. After returning to the doctor, I discovered something disturbing. My left eye was lasered beyond limits during the surgery and slowly began disintegrating and distorting my vision. While I have maintained my vision in my right eye, my left eye is uncorrectable. The result, I see distorted shadows and reflected light, especially in lower light conditions. I learned to live with this limitation and didn't think it would ever affect my painting until a fellow artist commented on my work one day. As an abstract artist with a graphic design background, I work with many shapes when I paint, but she noticed something about how I approached these geometric figures. I love how you play with 3 dimensions in your work, she said, and don't follow artistic conventions. While your compositional shapes have depth and shadow, the shadow don't follow design rules. I was taken aback. Was this true? How were my shapes not following the rules of design? How were my shadows not following the rules of design? I reviewed my past work and realized that she was correct. The geometric shapes did not follow normal shadow and depth conventions. My paintings belied the truth of my physical situation, even though I was unaware. My failed eye surgery had become part of my creative DNA. I see the world of shadow and depth differently than anyone else, and the physical trait is revealed in my work. Art critic Harold Rosenberg was correct in his definition that action painting was a recording of an event in time. But a painting doesn't just reflect your thoughts and emotions, it reflects your physical self. As a spiritual artist, I know that I am comprised of mind, body, and spirit, and I use all 3 in the creative process. We are not one without the other. We are one holistic being comprised of all aspects, working in unified harmony. As a spiritual artist, I ask you to willfully accept the perceived limitations of your body and learn to move through them. Do not let fear stop you from expressing your whole self. Learn to move with your body and create something as individual as you are. Remember that your body is a significant part of what you bring to the creative act. Remove your judgment of this perceived limitation and let it take you to a new level of creative expression. As I said when I opened this chapter, this is an incredible chapter and a realization for me that we are not without our bodies. Here in the West, we tend to think that we're all mind and we can overcome things mentally. But we're starting to learn that our body is part of who we are. And we have to work within the limitations, but also the gifts of our body. Our bodies are incredible healing mechanisms. And I'm reading more and more about what's called somatic therapy, the ability to use your body for healing. I really want to ask you two things I want you to note from this chapter. First, what are you avoiding creatively because you think physically you don't have what it takes? Because I want to challenge you into thinking that whatever it is, turn that around and realize that whatever physical limitation you have is actually a gift. And it's going to show you a new way of approaching that project creatively. I learned a new way of painting. I learned a new way of seeing. And I will continue to learn things as my body changes in form and ages, of ways to get around and work within the limitations of my body. Second, I want you to think of your body as a healing mechanism, as a movement mechanism. In several of my retreats lately, we're starting to do movement exercises. So try that. Try moving before you paint, doing a little moving exercise. You can do anything you want, but one great thing is to play a favorite song and dance. And just try this in the studio today. Do a 3-minute, find another song, or maybe take that song we just talked about, that song that strings you up emotionally. Now play it again, recognizing and feeling your body as you hear the song. In fact, that's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to play the song from yesterday, but listen to it with the intent of focusing on, how does my body feel? How does my body feel when I hear this music? Pick up your brush, go into the art studio, and feel it coming through you. And just do something. Don't judge it. Just do something on canvas or on your work table by feeling your body as you do it. I appreciate you on this journey. I thank you for following this journey. I would love for you to share this book and this reading with your friends. They don't have to do this on the same day that we do. They could start the June Club in July. That's what's so nice. All these videos are in line, in queue on YouTube. You can listen to them in any day you want. I will see you tomorrow on the Spiritual Artist Podcast. Thanks again for listening to the Spiritual Artist Podcast. Whether you're watching this show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, or iHeartRadio, make sure you choose the subscribe button so that you will receive updates when new segments are released. Most importantly, be still, listen, and know that you are a spiritual artist.